Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Anne Nevel. Anne is responsible for internal and external education and DEI efforts at the Healthcare Distribution Alliance, or HDA. We love a good acronym. Look, her dream job would involve walking around outdoors in perfect warm weather, talking to people and sharing stories. Yeah, my dream job as well. She is passionate about inclusion and belonging, volunteering, connecting people, showing up, and being present and living life. I loved our interview today. Honestly, she is the real deal. So funny, inspiring, and I'm so excited to have you guys listen. So please welcome Anne Nevel. Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so thrilled that you have joined me today because we originally met on LinkedIn, and there's a story behind that, but we'll get into it. But you are just so creative in everything you do, whether it's in business or volunteering or personal. And I love your story, and I'm so happy you are with us in the C-Suite today. So I just thought we would start off by telling everyone, or you telling everyone, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I do so many weird things and they're all over the place. So I appreciate that you like my story because I do a little bit of this and that. And to most people, it doesn't make any sense, but it does for me and it fulfills a lot of important
Yeah.
spaces in my life. So I would say for my income producing life, I am the vice president of education at at a trade association. And in that role, I get to do a lot of really cool things that are involved around education and career development, whether it's for our staff sometimes, but most often for folks that are in the currently. I've done this in so many different industries, but currently with the pharmaceutical distribution industry, and it's getting to work at conferences and put together the education that they need, as well as, and if I'm getting into too much detail,
No,
just
please.
let me know. So I basically put together education and find the people that can teach them about those things. So I'm connecting speakers with the education, with the audience that wants them and needs what they have to offer. So I've been doing this type of work for, I hate to count anymore, maybe 18 years I've been doing this part. But I found that pretty much, whether it's in my personal life or my professional life, there's always something about connecting things and people. And so that's kind of what I do. And I enjoy having that opportunity to do that with pretty much anybody. But right now it happens to be people in that space.
I love that. And you know what? Like it's so interesting because you connecting people works in any space. Right.
Yes.
And I
Yep.
think that's special because not a lot of
Yeah.
people can do that, connect
Yeah.
people with other people. So,
Yeah.
okay. So now I have you here. Let's get
Yeah.
into the funny. What's your favorite joke? How we like to start.
So when you said that to me, I was like, you know what? I am a terrible joke teller. So
Perfect.
I don't feel like I have a perfect or a favorite joke. I always go back to like the things I used to say as a kid, or the dumb jokes that I would say as a kid
Yeah.
that were really super. I'm a very much a dry humor person, and
Yeah.
I like stupid jokes and like those one-liner things. But yeah, so I used to tell things like when I was a kid, I told this one stupid joke about potatoes and the punch. And this is why I said I'm a terrible joke teller. I can't remember from the beginning to the end, but in the end, it says it refers to people who are commentators. But there's a story about them being commentators. And I would crack up laughing every time I said it. And it has a really good story, but I'm a terrible joke teller, so I can never remember it. But I
I
do
love that. Go on.
remember I remember the other kid joke that I wasn't alone in telling this, so I guess I could remember it. But I would always say to people, "What were you eating under there?" And then they would say to me, "Underwear." And I'd say, "You were eating underwear." And I would crack up laughing and think that was the funniest thing ever. So
Ever.
I am better at listening to other people's jokes or just being myself and being
I
silly.
I have to say there's something to be said for one's child self and still giggling at those jokes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know, and
exactly.
I've had other guests tell their favorite childhood jokes. You know,
Mm.
like a rope walks into a bar and it ties itself in a knot and frays the end. And they're like, we don't serve, ropes here. And they're like, but I'm afraid not,
No.
So just
Yes,
ridiculous
that is
stuff.
me.
Yeah.
That's me.
Or there was an airline here called WestJet, and they would always start before they did the whole, routine of if there's an emergency, they would always start with a dumb joke. And one of their dumb jokes was, why did the M&M go to university? It wanted to
Wow.
be a smarty. Anyway,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
the
exactly.
dumbest joke.
Those
Yeah.
are the things. Yeah, those are things that crack me up.
Yeah.
And to this day, I'm that person that will crack up if
Yeah.
they're saying a word that's like not supposed to be funny, but it sounds
But it
funny.
is funny.
Exactly. Hmm.
Yeah, no. It's so funny because if you ask a kid, I'll ask people, what's their favorite story, whatever. And as adults, we're like, I have no idea, even though we always end the podcast like that. But if you ask a kid, they're like, I have 100 things I can tell you.
Yeah,
Right? Because they're so
exactly.
open. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's so
it's
true.
the
That's so
best. So
true.
so
Yeah.
you've been doing what you do for so long now. And I know you have a lot going on also in your personal life with volunteering and this and that. But when you're at work and you're dealing with, not only event planners, even, or pharmaceutical companies or this or that, how are you leading your team with humor? Do you have certain things that you do or like to do?
Ah, I will say, first of all, I'm one of those people that says unless we are doing something that is really going to make or break or save somebody's life, that it's not that serious. I think it's funny because just before we got on, and this is definite. I just thought about this. This is how I'm in my home office right now,
Yeah.
but this is how my office has always looked, and you can only see part of it, but there's always toys and always silly things that look so
Yeah.
childish, and I've never changed that. As long as I can remember, my offices have always looked like this. Now, when people come into our house, my husband has a home office that I always tell them looks like a professional works in there, and mine looks like a kid's playroom. But that is a signature thing that has always been. I mean, that's my flag football trophy there behind me. I won the not flag football. I'm sorry, paper football tournament at the office. That is front and center, very important stuff. So I have like kids' books and kids' toys, and that's always been in
Yeah.
my office. So I've always been that person, and I never, no matter in what role I've been in, I've never changed that. So I think that, I think that's what's always been important for me is to be just a silly human and to show up that way all the time. I think that's kind of the most important part. I don't want to say too many things and then we have nothing else to talk about in my one
Oh,
one comment.
no. You know what? I find that so fascinating because when I do speak, there are lots of ways to show that you have a sense of humor. And that's a
Mhm.
great way. Just what's it? I have a rubber chicken in my office. Why wouldn't I have a rubber chicken?
Right,
I'm a
exactly.
comic.
Exactly.
That's
Yes,
what we
yes.
do,
I'm surprised I don't have one, to be honest.
Well, that's
I
it.
started
Send
looking
me a
around. I'm
rubber
like,
chicken.
yeah, it's
But
possible.
that also is a really smart way to show people that it's okay to be silly here. It's okay to
Mhm.
come to me with a problem. It's okay. So I think that's really, as silly as it seems, I think it's a really smart way to connect with your, people you're working with saying it's okay to be yourself here. And
Mhm.
I think that is worth its weight in gold.
Mhm.
Honestly, do you find that humor over the years has helped with your team collaboration?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I think that, because kind of going back to that, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay to be yourself. Guess what? We all make mistakes.
Yes.
We all and I feel like if you're having, kind of have more of that fun mentality or you're not taking everything so seriously. Now, of course, it's all serious, but at the same time, there's a way to do things and I don't know, show that it's not that serious, and show that it's okay to be human and make mistakes. And then I think from there, then you're more likely to, to hold yourself accountable and then be willing to share when you've made a silly mistake. And I'm saying silly because, and that's the way I kind of treat it, so that people don't feel like it's like, oh my God, I made a huge mistake and I'm going to be in so much trouble.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to tell anybody. And so then if you're not saying anything, and the people that need to know in order to help you with whatever it is that we need to do to be collaborative, I mean, I think
Yes.
that at the end of the day is super important. I think that, and even thinking about this and talking to you about this today,
Yeah.
I was like, I just think it's in how I show up and how I talk to people. And I really, I change it for the right audience now, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. But for, for
Of
my team and the
course.
people that I have to work with for their, on a regular basis, I think that's super important, just to show them that we're all humans and we
Human.
all make mistakes. And yeah.
And the fact you just said show up, I love it because there's an experiment that was done in the 1970s. I was
Hmm.
just watching this and it was so fascinating because it's called the still face experiment. I don't know if you've heard of it, but where they took a baby and the mom's playing with the baby in the room. And then they asked the mom to ignore the baby. And the baby starts, to try and play and this and that. And then it starts freaking out. And it just proved to me, even a baby knows if you're in the room, if you're
Yeah.
truly showing up, if you're, really present in the moment. Because so often, especially nowadays, we're always on our phones. We're always, so often we aren't present. And I think it's as a leader, as an executive within the company, showing people that you really care and that you're really engaged in showing up is really, just a great asset, if anything. I mean, I could go on, but you know, let's just do this. Let's really be
it,
there for
it
each
is
other.
it's half of or it's all of life is showing
Yeah,
up. Right.
absolutely.
Here we are.
Absolutely.
That is life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also love what you said where, you have to know who you're speaking to. So, did you
Right.
find that your sense of humor will really change within your team that you're working with or a client that you're trying to, just meeting for the first time? And
It's interesting because it does. And I think it's important to do that to an extent. I
yeah,
also think it's important not to lose yourself. I feel like my success has been around who I am, and again, how I show up and how I communicate with people. I'm very transparent. I have had people, sometimes go, "Oh, I don't know if I would have said that way." Um, and I've been successful by saying it that way.
yes,
Someone was really receptive to it because
yeah,
but it is also still reading. It doesn't mean that, like, I'm saying that in every professional situation or every situation where I'm meeting somebody new that I have to be a certain way, but it is still like getting
yeah.
reading your audience. And I was thinking about, I worked with someone when I was much younger, and it was actually with a title insurance company. And people
Okay.
were signing, mortgage documents and really important things where they're buying a home, and it's, super important. And that guy was funny all the time and never knew when to turn it off. And he would go into every situation exactly the same. He would put out, all these papers that are very important and say, oh, there's a bunch of pages here, but basically it just says, if you pay, you stay, if you don't, you won't. And would be like, and think that's hilarious. I thought it was great. It makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense to me. I get it. I'm your audience for that. A lot of people, there was not their audience,
right.
or that was not the right audience. So I think that was like an example of, you
Yeah.
need to still read. You can be funny and you can be kind and you can be
Hmm.
somebody fun to be around, and you need to read your audience.
Yeah. Have you ever had humor fail and have to sort of backtrack or go, I'm really sorry or
It's funny. I haven't. Um,
yay?
not that I can, not that I can think of. I
Yeah.
know. I was trying to think about that. I don't really. I can't think of any time that it's really been an
Yeah.
issue.
Have you used a lot of humor like into like do you guys at your offices? I don't know if you're all working remote now. Are you?
We're hybrid. We're hybrid.
You're
So some people
hybrid?
are. I'm fully remote, but
Oh,
there's
okay.
those
Yeah.
variations across our organization and our industry.
And are doing any team building or stuff like that or games within that in that
Yeah.
environment?
Oh, absolutely. And so it's funny because I am, I am definitely, I was just saying this to some folks recently that I have referred to myself as the squishy one. I am always the, I am
Correct.
definitely known for the one who's going to bring the fun things and the games and
Yeah.
the soft stuff and the silly stuff and I mean I almost feel like I'm making this up just for you because I'm really not. Um, but
And it,
I am.
no, I'm kidding.
I am that person because people will be like, I don't know what she's doing this time, but whatever. We're gonna show up and see what this is about.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I do think it's important to play games and to to do different things and kind of change it up a little bit. Um, yeah, yeah. I will let other people take the role of the serious part, but I am
Yeah.
usually the one who and it goes over really well, and people connect to that, and they under
Yeah.
they. I don't know.
Could you
It,
give us an example of a kind of game you'd play?
you know, it's, I've played a few different ones.
Yeah.
There is one that a good friend. I've actually tried to make a connection because there definitely is a connection between you and her. Someone that I know created a game that's called the Very Interesting Game,
Oh,
and
right. Yes.
did,
Yes.
and
Yes.
she has like yeah, you just come up with these really weird things, and like it just gets you to think a little bit more creatively because you're often
Yeah.
like they're just I can't even think of any examples right now, but that's
Yeah.
one. And then I've done other things that just have people being more curious, where you're having to just kind of guess things about people, like people
Yeah.
answer a bunch of questions and you have to figure out like who gave that that question or whatever it might be. Like, and I did not come up with a paper football tournament. However, I am very much in on every opportunity to do anything like that as
Are you
well.
competitive? Are you competitive?
I am a little competitive.
As you
I
look
also
at
do
your
have
trophy.
I have the leg lamp trophy as well that I won for
What's a
my
leg lamp trophy?
so the the leg lamp trophy was given to me for my my door decorating skills in my office at one point.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's serious
So
business right
it
there.
is very
Door
serious.
decorating. Get on that,
It is.
people.
It is. Yep.
I
Yeah.
love all that. Like all those little things. And you know what? What you just said about, it really leading to creativity and thinking in a different way. And I do
Mhm.
find like using humor in the workplace makes us more receptive, open, collaborative, and innovative, because
Mhm.
we're really, we're better when we're relaxed. We're better when we're having fun. We're more
Mhm.
creative, come up with the worst
Mhm.
idea instead of the best idea.
Yeah.
All of a sudden everyone's like, this is hilarious and way better. So,
Yeah, I think too, the other thing I was just thinking about is just vulnerability. And I think and that's why, and I just thought of that just now when I said about showing up and how I show up
yeah.
very vulnerable. And so I think that also, helps people just, kind of feel like they can be, that gives them more confidence to, like you said, be more
Yeah.
innovative, be more creative, take
Yeah.
a chance and, putting some ideas out there because I say some crazy things. I have to tell
Yeah.
you something kind of funny because I was thinking about this um, before we got on and I had to look up the term hot and heavy because those are the kinds of things that I was thinking. I was like, what kind of impact do I make on my team members? And I was like, it's those kinds of things. Like I say things, and sometimes they're generational, or sometimes
Yeah.
it's but then it's so cool to watch them. Like they'll laugh and be like, "Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, or
Yeah.
why you just said hot and heavy." Because I just looked it up, and I'm like, it can mean two different things, and one of them is like like sexual and passionate. And the
Yeah.
other one is just very excited. And in my world, I was just met somebody who's super excited and charged up about something. And I had no idea that, like, it wasn't until I had said it a few times that my team members that are younger were like, I don't know why you keep saying that here. And now
Yeah.
they'll say things like that. Like, you know, it's like it's like it's creating this kind of team bonding in a weird way. Like some of the silly word choices that I might make or
Yeah.
things that I might say that seem so bizarre to them. And then the next thing I know, we're in another setting with other people and they're using that same weird term.
I love
right?
that. Yeah. Instead of them saying, okay, boomer, they're like, yes, boomer. I find
Yeah.
like the only thing that really ages me now is my font size. So, in terms of you really leading a team, have you ever had to like, tell someone else to say that their humor is going too far, or do you sort of let
Oh,
people be
yeah.
themselves? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would say, and interestingly, same guy back in the day, he
Yeah.
liked to to do just very inappropriate jokes and things. Like, I don't remember what kinds of, I mean, I kind of do, but I don't know that I want to.
Yeah.
But he would just do things that were going over the line, or not thinking about his
Yeah.
audience, not aware of his audience. The other thing that I would say, and to me, this happens in leadership sometimes, people not being able to discern between fun and humor and passive aggressive behavior.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people try to like sandwich the point that they're trying to make
Yeah.
with humor, and it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
You know, like
Absolutely.
like the here's a really stern comment I want to make, but then I'm going to put a haha or a smiley face behind it. You know,
The
like I think
sniper.
that's
I call those the snipers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think
You really have to know where you stand, and that people are going to get called out for that. You
mhm.
can't guise passive aggressiveness as humor. That's like, I find so many people guise their spirituality as conspiracy. It's just like, it's such a fine line that you
Yeah,
really have to
there,
explore. And I think it's great that, and they might not even realize that they're doing it. It just might
right,
be the way their family has always spoken to each other, or this or
right,
that, and when you call people out, they're like, oh yeah, it might come across that way. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Or they might just be,
yeah,
yeah, I was totally being passive aggressive there. Yeah. It's like with
yeah.
my husband, I'm always saying, we should really take out the garbage tonight. And I'm not saying we at all. I in
Oh
those
yeah,
moments,
oh
I'm
yeah.
really just saying you should. Yeah.
I know my husband. I was talking about this recently with somebody else too. He is, and I know other coworkers who do the same thing, where they ask you, do you want to take the garbage out? And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to take the garbage out. Would you like for me to take the garbage out? Because well, yeah,
Exactly. It's
that's usually
okay.
the case.
My husband's idea of romance now is taking out the garbage uh, on Wednesdays, and he's an idiot because garbage day is Tuesday. So
Oh,
there you go. He doesn't know. He doesn't know anything. I do want to just go back because I do love the way we met.
hmm,
And I have to tell this story because I was on LinkedIn.
okay.
Someone recommended me to get in touch with you. I'm trying to write you this, really pitchy sort of LinkedIn message saying, hire me. I'm amazing. But LinkedIn would only let me use 300 characters. I found it very frustrating. And I ended up telling you I just wanted to write you a haiku, in which you actually got back to me. So I find there's a blessing in really connecting, just being yourself and saying, you know what, I'd rather just talk about this. And you're just like, this is a breath of fresh air. And,
Yes.
so do you find when people really are connecting with you, like, I knew you had a sense of humor at that point because you were just like, oh, thank God, you know.
Yeah.
But do you find,
Yeah.
are you using that? Are you ending your emails with funny little anecdotes or,
You know,
PSs or?
I should do it more often. And I have a colleague that I've worked with over the years who sometimes does like fun Friday things. And I've done it over time. I don't do it
Yeah.
on a regular basis, but I am that person if I can get the opportunity to put in a funny meme somewhere.
Yeah.
Or, if I'm doing some a presentation, I love doing that kind of stuff. Um, but I think, yeah, and I don't know if this is going a little bit off topic, but it just based off of what you were just saying about
Yeah.
initial. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. I don't know what in some cases, I don't know what I do, but it just reminded me of, a story because I think I might have told you I have a women's retreat that it's one of my many silly crazy things I do.
Tell people about the
Um,
retreat. What do you guys do
so
there?
did I tell you this or
I don't
maybe I
want
didn't?
to
But it's
know.
called the sleepover. And the intention was for it to have kind of a sleepover feel to it. And the first and it's funny because I was like, oh, I kind of want to get women together and just have a sleepover, like, do some of the things that we did as
Yeah.
kids. And then, the first person I talked to about it, was like, you should absolutely do that. And you can use what the experiences you have working with events and put some professional development in it and, get a group of women together. And so the first year that I did it, I really didn't know for sure what I was going to do, but I was really jazzed up about the idea of
Aw.
a sleepover. And
I'm
I had,
gonna come.
I had some, so it's funny because to this day, I can tell you, within a few minutes, whether or not the person I'm talking to is the right fit for that or not. Because I've had people who will say, have you thought about changing the name of that? Um, and I'm like, yeah, this is not for you. Or your response, I want to, I want to go.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it's funny because so one of the first people I asked, I hadn't even met her in person. We were talking on the phone. I had heard about her after at a conference, called her up about speaking initially. Turns out within, I don't know, during our phone call, I determined she's somebody I'd like to invite. So I just out of the blue was like, hey, random question, do you want to come to my sleepover? and she and she was like, sure. And I was like, you don't have any other questions? Like, you don't want to know anything more about it? She's like, no. She's like, that's just so weird. I think I want to know more about it. And so it's hilarious because that's one of the funniest things that,
Yeah.
has happened in the last several years. I'm still like, she still comes to my sleepovers. I have
Oh
number
my
5
God. When
coming
is
up.
this
And,
sleepover?
that's a whole other conversation, right? I think that's a conversation for later. But a lot of laughing going on there too. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was like, but I was thinking about that because the way you said that, when I connect with people, I don't know what it
Yeah.
is that I'm doing, but I did something that made
Right.
her think that she wants to come to my sleepover, even though
Sleepover.
we've never met in person ever before, right?
Which is such a
And
kid
this was even
thing
on the
to do.
phone. I keep doing this too,
We're old school.
It was even on the phone. It's just she wasn't even seeing me.
That's so crazy. There's
Yeah.
always a puker at my sleepovers. Is there a puker at your sleepovers?
Oh,
Always
oh, there was
one.
close to being. It was very close to being a puker, and there was a crier.
Oh, of course. And there's always, you know what's so funny? I have a story I just
Actually,
read.
there's always a crier, but yes,
Always,
go.
it's too much
But yeah,
wine. Is there wine at your sleepovers?
there's one.
There's wine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just wrote a story because I start the story off by saying I was 7 and I was killing it on the sleepover circuit because every time I'd go there, I was still performing back then. I would do Mr. Chinnigan, where you draw like a face on your chin and you lie upside down, right? You talk like that and you cover it's hilarious. But then I decided it was just killing it on the sleepover skirt. I thought I was going to do it for the talent show at school. And I decided to do it and I did it. And there was just silence. And I was like, what is happening? Like I bombed. My first bomb as a comic was when I was 7. I swear to God. And I realized everyone was too far away. Right?
Oh, so they
Yeah.
couldn't see.
So they couldn't see it. Everyone's just like, what is she doing? I just totally, it didn't get me down. I was on it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this work somehow. But
Figure this out.
oh my
That
God,
is
love.
that is hilarious. Yeah.
I love a
I,
good sleepover party. That's amazing. And I just
yeah.
love the fact it's on top of everything else you're doing.
Yeah.
Whether you're affecting people at work or affecting people in your spare time, you're always making lives better. And that's
Thank you.
incredible. It
Thank you.
really is. I
Thank
have
you.
loved our conversation. Do you find that, is there anything where you'd want to add humor in your life? Like, do you find any part where you're like, yeah, I could use more humor there?
Not anything I can think of, but one
Yeah.
thing I do think you and I talked about this when we first connected, that um life is short.
Yeah.
And I think that's a space where I think people, and another reason why I think people need to have more humor in their
Yeah.
lives and not take things so seriously. And even, I was even thinking about, I don't know, I don't remember what made me think about it earlier, but I guess I was just thinking, about having this conversation with you and things that were
Yeah.
funny and things that, like, so I'm going to take this two different directions. Like, my mom was the kind, and I was thinking about this for our earlier conversation. My mom was the kind of person who would awkwardly laugh at things, and
Yes.
because she wasn't, if she was uncomfortable, and I'd
Yeah.
get so frustrated. I'm like, Mom, no, this is serious. You're not supposed to be laughing right now. And at the same time, there are, when I think about some of the funniest things that have made me laugh really hard, besides the sleepover stuff and some of those things.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, something like when my mom had, she was never officially diagnosed. She clearly had dementia. But, going through that time with her and with all the people, all her friends in in her long-term care facility where
Yeah.
she was living, there were so many things that were funny. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
you know what, we're at this point here. And one of the funniest things, I came into her at one point when she was still at home, and well, actually I was downstairs, she was upstairs in her bedroom, and I heard a lot of like bumping around, and then she called out for me, and so I went up there. I thought something was bad was happening. She's trying to put on my skinny jeans, like they don't fit her whatsoever, but she was working really hard, and she was so frustrated because she couldn't quite get them on.
Oh my
And it was the
God.
funniest thing to me. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I was thinking about earlier when I'm thinking about funny things. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so hilarious. And like, just the things that would happen at that facility where people, and those are the kinds of things where I think some people would be like, oh my God, you're not supposed to laugh at those things
Oh
over,
my God. How do you not
serious
laugh?
stuff. But oh
Yeah.
my gosh, some of the things my mom would say, or the other people, they would be like totally planning uh bailout, like that there would be a ringleader, and she'd be gathering up her troops and like, we're out of here, and they'd all be marching down,
Yeah.
just like the funniest things. And it is,
Yeah.
interestingly, we started this off by talking about when we were kids, and now here
Yeah.
we are at this other point in our life, and
Yes.
we're doing these silly funny things. So
Things. Yeah.
I don't think, I don't know. I might be one of those people that other people might be going like, she shouldn't be laughing about
Absolutely
that.
not.
But
Like, honestly, it's been so insightful and pretty
mhm,
magical. As far, and
mhm.
it's so funny because we used to put on our really tight jeans. We'd have to lie down and put a hanger. Remember the coat hanger with the zipper?
You're like
Right?
on your bed.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You just brought that whole flood of memory to me. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Maybe at your
Good
sleepover,
times.
you can have a skinny jean race putting them on.
Absolutely.
Oh
Absolutely.
my
That's
gosh.
funny.
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just told a really funny story. Did you have another funny story to end this podcast off with that you'd like to share? Or the
Oh
funniest thing
gosh.
that's ever
Oh,
happened?
so a work thing that happened one time.
Yes.
I don't know if this is, this is just something that just popped into my head when I think about because you know what? Sometimes the work things that are so funny are also really embarrassing.
Embarrassing. Yeah.
And maybe they were probably at that moment, I'm like, oh my God. But afterward, I'm like, oh my God, this is so hilarious. But it
Yeah.
wasn't, I don't know if it was that funny really, but I just think that I worked at one point after my degree was in criminology, and I worked with inmates and correction programs
Wow.
and stuff. Yeah. So
Stop.
it transitioned eventually. And so I was at yeah, so it's kind of weird to say, yeah, I was at a prison, but I wasn't. I was
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
I was there to visit this prison and meet with a warden, and I was walking around their campus, for a lack of better words.
Yeah.
And at this was years ago too, where I think I was, doing. I don't think it was the shoulder pads. I think it was. I'm going to say a little bit. It was part of my attire that created padding.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think it was my shoulders actually, and I think it got somehow caught up in my clothing in the laundry. So we're walking across this male prison too, with these male warden and vice warden, or what, assistant warden, I guess that's what they were called. And and my part of my underwear basically fell on the ground, and I didn't even notice it. And then one of the inmate helper people, he was, I
Yeah.
shouldn't say it that way, it was his job, so he
Yeah.
happened to be, he's like, ma'am, I think you I think you lost it.
Oh my
And
God.
I was just like, oh my
Horrified.
God, I don't think that's mine, but I'll take it. Thank you
Ah.
very much. I'll stick that in my pocket. How did that happen? And then I realized later, I think it was like stuck in the laundry somehow, and like was under my shirt.
Yeah, yeah. Pant
Yeah.
bottom. Oh, that's so good. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what a
It
place
was
for it to happen.
right. Well, that's what I think is funny about it. Like at the time, it
Yeah.
was mortifying.
Yeah, of
And then
course.
after the fact, I'm like, how funny to have like a piece of my
Yeah.
head, which he's just like, oh my God, I haven't seen anything like this in so long. And, he's picking it up.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. What a great way to end this episode.
Yeah.
I have to
It's
tell you,
silly.
Anne, it has been such a pleasure. You are so smart and insightful and just really funny and fun to
Thank
be
you.
around. That's why people want to
Thank you.
come to your sleepover parties. So,
Thank you.
without even knowing you. So thank you for being a guest. I'm so
Of course.
appreciative and grateful. Yay!